Right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our lovely channel, Planetary Intelligence. And once again, long overdue, by the way. It's been such a long time, and I've really missed this beautiful man, Jake. Jake, welcome back to Planetary Intelligence. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining me back here again, because our talks have been one of the most fascinating ones on the channel, and I've had such great feedback in the past from how much nourishment people have gained from our conversations. So we were just talking now about fatherhood, children, and sexuality. And I just want to kind of bring everybody back to what we were just talking about now. So I asked Jake. Jake said something that he sees no sexuality where his children are concerned at the age they were in. And I asked him, why? How did you come to that conclusion? And Jake, if you can just pick up from where we left there. And by the way, welcome
Yeah,
back.
what's up, brother? Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me back on. Obviously, I'm a fan, I'm a friend, I'm a brother.
As
I
am
missed
I.
you, dude. Yeah, I'm glad we both made it through this, terrible pandemic that's almost just ravished the planet. I'm glad we're still here,
Yep.
unmasked, unvaxxed, unafraid, unslaved, baby.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. So, talking about our kids. So I have my oldest is 8 and my youngest is 5, and we were discussing the pandemic and how I treat their information coming in with this pandemic a lot like I treat all of the propaganda and psychological warfare really coming into their awareness in the area of sexuality. Now, will they have sexuality eventually? Of course. I mean, they're both boys. But like what we were talking about, if you go to a playground in an elementary school, these kids are still playing with sticks, still playing with soldiers, Pokemon, Minecraft. They're more concerned with um, everything's new. They don't really look at anything as labeled. Really, the only labels that kids have are the ones that they get from their parents, especially their ideologies, in my opinion. So, like with my kids, I don't let them. It's very hard, and it's hard for people to practice what they preach, really. But it's kind of, you cannot be watching content. You can't watch the news. You can't even watch The Bachelorette, American
Mm,
Idol, any of these things, really mainstream TV, without exposing your kids to very um, mature ideas, especially regarding sex. And you're going to confuse them a lot. I don't think that that's our job. I think that you need to keep everything like that away from your kids until they are at least mentally capable of understanding any of these concepts. Um, right now, like you would agree, I think when your kids are young, your biggest purpose, the purpose that especially fathers used to have, is to protect our sons, our families, our daughters, and raise them to be strong, enrich their egos, give them a backbone, give them morals and values, and just expose them to skills, to
mm,
sports, to different ways to build things with their hands, their mind, their words, everything.
mm,
Unfortunately, I bet you would agree. One thing we lack is a ritual as a society to usher boys and girls into adulthood. Maybe it used to be school. I think school and graduation took that. Rockefellers took that away from all the indigenous peoples, but now we don't have anybody to usher young kids into adulthood. I think that's a big
mm.
problem we haven't
Yeah.
discussed.
Oh wow. I mean, you've hit a very important point that's been definitely missing from most cultures around the world. Um, absolutely. That there has never been, or I haven't seen anyway, until I would say definitely the more indigenous tribes and the more ancient peoples used to practice this. It's just something that the controllers have taken away, or those who we've allowed to control us. have taken away from our society, or from building our communities. And that is, yeah, having a ritual for ushering them into manhood or womanhood. um Again, I think there's a sort of play on words with adultism in itself, and I think Michael Tsarian has touched upon adultism and the dangers of adultism, because it's actually a conditioned culture where we are suppressing. And I know that you mean manhood and womanhood, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that is certainly missing. And one thing that I found when I was growing up, because I grew up in a family full of boys, so the only woman that was in my house was my mother. So I
Hmm.
had no, and coming from an Islamic background as well, even though I'm not part of that religion or that belief anymore, is that those from those kind of backgrounds are already segregated from the female. But the problem with those religions is that they suppress the female so much that it makes the male more curious about the female at an
Right.
earlier age because of that segregation.
Hmm.
You're taught not to play with girls from a young age, from when you're around 5 or 6 or 7, when there's actually nothing wrong with it, you know.
Exactly.
And that's the problem when adults come in. These adults, they come in and they interfere with the children's natural processes of their social interaction, because their social learning comes from how they interact with their peers, whether male or female, and that's how they grow up. Also, I guess it's the same thing, like with um, uh, fatherhood or motherhood. Like, how the boy relates to the mother and the father affects their sexuality later on down the line when they are adults. If they're not given enough love from the father or the mother, that will affect their sexuality. That will warp into perversions or things that are unhealthy sexually. That's my belief. Well, not my belief, my understanding, at least my inner standing of
Hmm.
of that. But again, it's like you said, when do you know when you've become a man or woman? when
Right.
when is
Well,
that
we're
moment?
never, never. We're never done. Um, Even with sexuality, I know in America, I bet it's the same in UK.
Mm,
Everything that we were, months, years ago, I dove into all this crap. And one of the main fathers of the study in human sexuality, he wrote these books, the anatomy or sexual behavior of the human male and sexual behavior of the human female. His name was Alfred Kinsey. The
mm.
Kinsey Institute. Um, Liam Neeson actually played him in a movie. They made a movie about this dude.
All right.
And in
Mm.
this book, I ordered these books off of eBay. They're old. I have them in my closet. And in them, he admits, that a lot of his participants in these studies were procured by people in prison or in the jail systems and whatnot, pedophiles, people with domestic abuse, all this crap, and they would get these young kids and they would do their sexual experiments on them. Very perverse, some of the darkest, grossest, nastiest crap. And of course, it's worshipped in Hollywood, and that was what was taught to all of us in school. And a
Mm.
lot of that has to do with these Oedipus complexes and all of these things that are so ingrained with us. Like, I remember when I was in school, they would tell people like, "Oh, men think about sex every 3 seconds." Like, that is the biggest lie you
It
have ever
is.
heard.
Yep.
Like, really? But I've heard that my whole life. And
Yep.
we
Yep.
do have a culture of simps and suckers out here that prop up the porn culture and OnlyFans and all these other things.
Yep.
And I'm not knocking anybody for what they decide to do, because like there is a market for it. So of course the women are going to do that. But we've been really perverted and twisted into ideas of sex and sexuality and relationships to the point of almost no return now. I think, I mean, modern relationships are the most complicated thing to navigate. And that's why most people out here are single parents.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which we don't even know what these repercussions are going to be like in 20 or 30 years. And I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about that because people like you and I, we're we're upgrading, we're leveling up. There's so many people like us out here, but we also have kids, and we've also lived in this life and made mistakes and grew up deep entrenched in the system. And some of the biggest psyops that have ever gone on with internet emerging onto us as we've developed and onto our kids and everybody we've been in contact with. We need to really look inward and start taking accountability with the people we involve ourselves with, and the problems we invite into our lives, even if that's in the guise of the opposite sex.
Mm. Oh, 100%, 100%. And I think it goes back to what you're saying as well about the repercussions of how our future generations, our children's generation, and so on, in 20 or 30 years' time, how society will be formed as a result of this sort of lack of individuation, because it all comes back to that. It's we have the shadow work, but beyond the shadow work is for the male to integrate the anima and for the female to integrate the animus. And without that integration of the inner masculine and the inner feminine in pure balance in the self, by knowing that self, there is no healing that's going to come to the planet without that individual process happening in as many human beings as possible here on earth right now. I mean, we are so entrenched in this mind control of sexual conflict and hypersexualization, I think, as well, because pornography has done just that. It's hypersexualized everything, and everything seems to be about the lower carnal, lustful type sex, when sex was once upon a time a sacred act that was, you know, part of it. Was sacred. It was, I don't, you know, anyone can go and research this. Sex
and it
was
was
a
for
sacred
creation. It was for creation, to make offspring too.
Yeah, but
I
it's
mean,
also for ascendance of you know, you when you read up about white tantra,
divine energies
and divine energies, how you can preserve the oils, and the idea of how the sacred, so-called, called the sacred secretion, how that is actually the oils of creation and the oils of creativity, and how they should be preserved. Yes, enjoy sex, but don't waste the seed, you know, or don't waste your fluids, because these are sacred things. And like you said, it should only be used for procreation. You know, yes, you can use it for enjoyment, but don't do it for the fleeting, temporal, you know, over indulgent in overindulgence of pleasure, because it's like greed or anything, or gluttony in a way, because it's like overeating. We're so oversexed because we're trying to fill a hole in ourselves, because we haven't individuated with our anima or with our animus, as women haven't done. And this is why we're getting divorce rates and family units, and they know this, by the way. I know they know this. You know,
now over 80 to 90% of divorces are initiated by the women now. And that goes even higher up the more educated they are. And there's like this whole red pill, you know, ideology with men, where I get it. You know, when you're burned by the system or whatnot, a lot of men really get their lives railroaded by the system and by a bad woman. But equally as many women get their lives ruined by men. And I would love to see some red pill ideology for women that would say, like, stay away from these traits in men, do this. Because the stuff with the red pill, like, I would say someone like Jordan Peterson is more of this red pill kind of guy, where he's like, look, take care of yourself, clean your room, you know, raise your kids, do not lie. He's more about taking accountability. But where is that same thing with females? Like, there's still these spiritual girls out here. Like, a lot of the content creators that you'll see doing podcasts still have to, you know, have their boobs out, and they're in like these little things selling their sexuality still. And it's like, I mean, do we do that? I don't know. There needs to
men
be
don't do that as much, I guess. Yeah, we don't have breasts to show off either. So,
well, we know that
there's a biological thing, you know. Yeah.
And I get it, the liberation, you know, and you have to, and they've been repressed for too long, and they still are being repressed. But this type of the feminist, you know, the traditional feminism type of liberation that it's turned into now is more repression. It's just chaos. It's squandering of everything that's beautiful in them. So I would love for someone, I mean, really the most red pill woman I've seen is like Candace Owens and those types that are just saying like, get educated, take accountability for yourself and responsibility for your own choices in life. Just because you wind up divorced, blah, 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 it doesn't mean that you're a failure and you need to go on OnlyFans and then go on Bumble and Tinder and just start dating and get your next husband. Like, heal, do the work, do the inner work, find yourself.
And it's modest, isn't it? It reminds me of modesty, what modesty actually means, because I look at the two extremes, because I've grown up between the two extremes, being in a family full of boys, having the feminine or the woman in my background, or not my background, but the area of the world that I came from, where Islam is the one that covers up the woman completely. And their excuse, and this is an excuse, by the way, for the lack of sexual control of the male, that the male is that weak sexually,
right?
That they have to cover up the woman because they're so weak, they can't control their penises, basically.
Right.
But then you have the other extreme in the West, where flatulence and showing off your cleavage and your female sexual body parts everywhere. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because again, I go to the beach or the swimming pool, I'm topless, my nipples are showing, and then a woman can argue, well, why are your nipples showing and mine aren't, and I have to cover up? Why should I be ashamed of these?
Right.
But again, it's to do with culture. It comes down to the sort of, again, over sexualization and hypersexualization. So we have this sort of paradox, in a way, that's kind of coexisting in the same planet right now, of the two extremes. And it's like, well, let's find that middle point, because that's the point. We've got to stop being divided on the far left and the far right, and the light and the dark. Let's find that center point of where is that for women and men. Let's find that center point where men should actually be conquering their inner sexual desire, in the sense they're not ruled by the brain down there, let's just say.
Right. Right.
Like that, like for them, they have the ethical or the moral values. They know that that attraction isn't just about the flesh, it's also about the heart and the mind. That trinity needs to be connected once it comes to our relations with women as men. And it should be the same way, the other way around. There should be an alignment. And then it ties back in, Jake, to the anima and the animus being in balance within the male and the female. It's the individuation thing.
It's hard. We'll see where we're at in like a year or two. I think a lot of things are changing really fast. I think right now, I don't know what it's like over there, but here we have the truckers up in Canada right now. That convoy, it's probably going to come down to DC soon. So in America, and they're trying to demonize Joe Rogan. They're turning Joe Rogan into the next Alex Jones, which is going to weaponize a lot of young jujitsu dudes. So there's like a good turning point going on, I've seen here. But like the paradox, the duality of this thing, where even this truckers strike, it's just gonna, like, that's Elon Musk just tweeted a couple days ago, Canadian truckers rule or something, which of course, you put it all in gematria, it all leads to this great reset coming. It all leads to, of course, he wants the trucks because he's going to usher in his self-driving semi trucks. Of course, why use these truckers who are on strike? We got the shortages coming now. Right. So here's the Hegelian dialectic. The problem is the Canadian truckers. The solution is Elon Musk's
driverless trucks,
self-driving trucks. Yep. And the in between, this middle part will be the shortages, the food supply shortages, or the inflation that they'll blame on these truckers. So what do? Of course, we got to support them. We got to join in, but we can't cave. We can't join in and help and ask the government for help. We got to be willing to accept the the consequences of this trucker strike, I feel like, because as soon as they're going to try to starve us out, they're going to raise the price, at least in America. I don't know how it's going to
Hmm.
affect you guys there,
I
but
don't know. I don't see it really affecting us here in the UK. I feel like we've had a few scares where food warehouses were burnt down, and things like that. But again, if it comes to it, this is the way I see it, Jake. It's like things need to play out the way they need to play out. You know, whatever is happening is as a consequence of this sort of inertia and suppression of both sides, and they need to loop. The God and devil need to play their dance, right? And once they finish dancing, then the equilibrium will come. But for now, we've got to watch out. But look, if it comes to the point where we have to survive, then we will survive. Humanity's always found a way. And we know that death is just but a door. But also we have to do the best we can for our children and preserve their future as best as we can,
that's
because they have a
yeah,
right to live as well. So we have that accountability too. As their caregivers. But we are dealing with, this is a David and Goliath sort of fight in a way. We
mhm.
have the inner one with the ego, and then we have the external one with the with what I like to call the enemies of life. They're there to be that opposing force, that Goliath, the Titan, so to speak. And how are we to find that solution? So yeah, I mean, one can only act with the best knowledge they have at the time in order to move things forward with what needs to be moved forward in the collective. So yeah, we'll see. We're living in such interesting times now, man.
Yeah.
Like really
What
such
do you
fascinating times.
what are you guys getting over there as far as the US and Russia Ukraine situation? Because here our our propaganda is pushing it hard. They want America to believe that Russia is going to invade Ukraine and we need to go to World War III or Cold War II. Would choose.
I don't know. I mean, look, I don't watch the mainstream. I've literally disconnected from a lot of it. I'll be honest with you. I sometimes will check in once in a while, but very briefly, like seconds. I would only give my
Mhm.
my 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 awareness and my attention to them for seconds at a time, once a month maybe
What
or something. But I
what
can tell
about
you,
the
yeah.
COVID lockdown measures and all this stuff? Because here we said, oh, we've been here in the UK, dropped all the mandates, all the restrictions, but it seems like they just did the masks, maybe.
The masks have dropped now, so that's
Okay.
no longer a mandatory thing now in the UK. So those mandates are gone, and now the whole vaccine mandate is going to go fall apart now because of the nurses. We've had thousands and thousands in front of it, couldn't be ignored anymore. It was right outside 10 Downing Street, outside the Prime Minister's home, and there were thousands and thousands of nurses throwing away their uniforms, saying, "I am not taking a vaccine for my job," and you know what? That violates my human right. I should be a I I have a right to the sovereignty of my own body, and this theme of sovereignty now is starting to come out in the UK a bit more.
Good.
So I'm only hoping that there is a ripple effect that's coming out. And um even when we look at astrology right now, Jupiter, and we have the Sagittarius conjunction as well happen. Sagittarius is exalted in Jupiter. Jupiter is a beneficent in astrotheology. All the good things come out of Jupiter. It's about balance. It's you have also Uranus, who is the gardener, who comes and tidies up all the overgrown weeds in the garden. So we are living in very kind of like, we're seeing now things getting overturned a bit by bit. I feel we just got to give it more time. I think their plan is bit by bit starting to fail, but we can't rule it out completely yet. We're not
Hmm.
out of the thick yet, I reckon, but we are starting to see that direction of I mean, I've had a friend of mine who had their friends, they fell out with their friends, or because of their views on this whole lockdown business malarkey, the convid whole thing. And they're now, for the first time in 2 years, they're the ones that have taken the jab. They're the ones that have, and now they're admitting, actually, you were right all along. We should listen to you. I now know that this is an experimental jab. So there are people who are actually regretting, who've completely been immersed in the brainwash, who are now coming out of it going, I wish I didn't take the jab. I wish I listened to you in the first place. So we're having that also happening amongst the collective here in the UK. So
good. Yeah, good. I don't know about here. We're still pretty I'm in Florida. Florida's great, man. We have Ron DeSantis, which he's like playing the next Trump role, which there's a lot of numerology. There's a lot of dudes. I've been hearing some murmurs of a possible event happening at the Golden Gate Bridge in August, like August 11th, 8/11 this year. That maybe some galvanizing event might happen in the Golden Gate Bridge. So we'll see. That's going to usher in the real Great Reset and maybe some even darker things. But it would be something that needs to happen, to be honest with you. It'd be like their final play, because I think we are reaching this point where the Schwab types, they're reaching the end of their rope, the end of their hand. I mean, we've seen almost every card they have, and now we're getting to the point where they're going to have to go for broke. I don't know if you've looked at any of these things with Antarctica and the name of the islands down there. There's Omicron Island, Delta Island, Coronation Island. Crazy stuff. And there's Rothschild Island, New Schwabenland, I think, is down there. That's where Admiral Byrd, I think, said he flew to. And if you look at Antarctica's flag, it's the symbol for Ethereum. All NFTs, everything on the metaverse, Sandbox, everything on the metaverse is based on Ethereum. So that is their whole play, in my opinion, will be this through these vaccines, whether it's making people, it doesn't even have to be as crazy as digital nanobots that are going to fucking upload them into some neuro-lace Elon Musk Terminator style reality into the metaverse. It might just make people sicker or cap certain parts of them where they're going to want to immerse themselves in this VR. And that's all based on Ethereum blockchain. And Ethereum is the symbol for Antarctica. So that's one future timeline. I don't know if you saw here, we just had 100 monkeys, bro. My prophecy has come true.
Wow, really?
100 monkeys just escaped. That there was a crash and 100 monkeys escaped. There were some CDC lab monkeys, and no lie, 100 of them. And the lady who went up to the cages of freaking monkeys, a macaque, jumped at the cage and hissed at her, and then she got sick and got COVID-like symptoms. So I'm like, Planet of the Apes, we could have a Planet of the Apes future.
I was thinking that Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, we could have a Terminator future, Ready Player One. We got a lot of options on the table, bro.
There's a lot of timelines, I think, being played out
there really
at this
are.
moment. I think so. And it's about, what we want as a collective. And, it's just what, Carl Jung calls about the collective unconscious. What is it about the unconscious? Why is it unconscious to begin with? Is it infinitely unconscious? Is there always something in the ether, so to speak, that it has to be balanced this way? The known and the unknown, the duality. How long are we going to play this game of duality? And is there a game where duality is balanced? That there is a sort of, we're going through this dystopian phase. And a friend of mine the other day said, you know what, they've told us history and they said we've been through the dark ages. But the way I'm looking at it is like, we're going through the dark ages right now. Yes, we have all this technology and all this amazing stuff, but what I'm saying is, like, technologically, we're in a utopia, but mentally, or should I say, spiritually, we're in a dystopia. It's again that those two opposite extremes are manifesting. And are we now going to head And I feel like even through my own healing over the past 2 years, I've had so much happen. We talked about, how women are leaving the men, but there are some women are leaving the real men, and some
Hmm.
real some men are leaving the real women, and maybe that also needs to play out as well as part of the balancing act. I always feel like there is always the counter opposite happening. So I don't know, how do you
There
feel
is.
about the sort of spiritual sort of side of things right now? I mean, you go into a lot of the alchemy, and I feel alchemy's always got to do with spirituality and matter as well. But how do you feel looking at where we are right now? Where do you think we're going to head in the next 2 years or so? Are we heading somewhere good spiritually, or are people, I don't know, is it going to
I
go the other
think
way?
that I think that we have been in. I think there's certain people. Everything's kind of like a curve. There's
Mm.
people on every end of the spectrum, but most people are in the middle.
Yeah,
And
the
to
neutral.
me, it seems like right, and it seems like that medium in the spiritual community is on the download phase.
Mm.
They've gained all the information, and they're still there for the most part. Most people are still stuck on the Q narrative and Trump, and looking for these external saviors, and
I
looking
know,
for
it's true.
labels to put themselves in, looking for cards to flip over that will give them the answers, stars to look at that will tell them the way. That's most people. Now, I
Mm.
think that there's people just getting started, and there's people that are coming out of this. Now, what's the point of all the chaos, all the black, all the lead, if it's not to make gold, not to create art, not to make content, to enlighten others, to enrich other people's lives? That's going to be on the other end of this the slope that we're on. I don't know what's going to
Mm.
get us out of that. I think it might have to be the destruction of this current narrative, because there's still so many people that are so far behind that in order for them to catch up, it's almost we need them now. I mean, we're at the point now where these people, the dark forces, are playing their final hand. I look at it like we're on a rhythmic loop of time, a Mobius strip of events that line up, but they're not exactly the same.
Mm.
And 100 years ago, in 1918, there was the Spanish flu, supposed pandemic. After that, we went into this Great Depression, and the only way out of these Great Depression was World War I started over in Europe, and then eventually America joined in. We're either going to have to go through a long famine, cyber attacks, this kind of pseudo techno communism that we're going to live
Mm.
in, which will just be the gulag. That will be where we're going to get Dostoevsky's of the future, and we're going to get these really dark enlightenment
Mm.
from people if we go into that phase, or we go to war for ourselves, or we go to war for our governments again, like we did in World War II, and we wipe out a lot of people. We get a lot more stuff, and we keep building on top of this same old reality.
Mm.
I think that's the two choices truly we have. I would prefer that we fight in one way or another than go through the next 20 years of starvation and dregs. If you look back into culture around the 20s, the 30s, it wasn't that good. It
No,
wasn't really
yeah,
until like the 50s, the 60s, where people started experimenting with spirituality again, bringing in the Eastern to the Western,
yeah, the
free love,
Steiners,
free drugs.
yeah.
Yes. And then, yes, and even the Steiners,
Mm.
Hawkins. There's a lot of people that then came out. But I mean, even Nikola Tesla, Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, all those guys were in the 1900s.
Mm.
They were doing the Bill Gates, the Jeffrey Epstein shit that those guys were doing in the 2000s here. It's very similar how these things play out.
Mm.
Now, those guys' reign ended in the 20s and 30s. Are those the same Epstein's Gates, that same force is ending now? But where we go from there, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel
After a
like,
war.
yeah, I feel from what you're saying there, though, it feels to me that we've been in this loop. I see, like, I think I mentioned in my last podcast, that it feels through the medicine, when I work as a shaman, the medicine was teaching me that we were in a loop, because I got into a loop, and I was trying to tell him, why are you showing me the loop over and over again? So we've been in some sort of a loop, a time loop, and but they're playing out with each different loop is playing out in a different costume, right? It's the same thing, but it's just playing out with a different
same play in different cities, different actors.
Exactly. So I wonder, how many great resets has there been already? And this thing about Tartaria that's coming up, the mud floods, have we lost our memory 200 years ago? Was there an age of enlightenment? Was there a golden age in the 17th century? And then when the 18th century, they slowly crept in again, and we had some massive, planet-wide tragedy happen, and there were a lot of orphans as a result, and they've managed to, I don't know, like, take the remaining adults that were left and kill them off, and then they're able to kind of reset humanity just from when they were kids as orphans, and then somehow that memory was lost, and that's where the trauma had happened. How many traumas have we had? And this is one thing that has left me questioning about this loop that we're in. Are we going to break
close?
And that's where I bring in, because you said there's the two extremes, but we have to also remember there's the center. So there's always a third option, a third possibility, and I'm looking at that third possibility as, are we going to break that loop? Are enough of us becoming aware of the BS that's around, and going, look, we recognize the pattern, guys. You played your cards, like, and is it just enough that it's just being aware of it, or is it that we have to act, which I think is the case? I think we have to act on this awareness and this knowledge. Otherwise, what are we in these bodysuits for?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, otherwise we'd be ghosts. We'd be disincarnate, that we couldn't act with this physical world, but we do have bodies that are built for tasks, unfortunately, and we are here for a reason. I'm always brought back to that one quote, that evil prevails when good men stand by and do nothing. And that is the problem. I do believe that we have the power now, because I could look you in the eyes and you and I can say, we will never go to war against each other. I would never turn, no matter what my government tells me, because we know. And when we watch the things in Canada, the things in France, the things in Germany, when people are rising up against their governments, that's really, I think, the way out, is when people face their own governments first and realize that nations are football teams or wrestlers on the world stage. It doesn't matter if, like, I'll tell you, football's totally rigged here. We're in the year of the tiger. The Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl. I don't even watch football, bro. I don't care about it, but I guarantee you the Bengals will win the Super Bowl, which will be an upset. And we're in the year of the tiger. I'm just calling it like it is. And also, I'm pretty sure they're going against the Rams, which just came out of the year of the buffalo or the ox or something like that. So the Tigers beating that. It's so easy to call the way they do these things. And if we can just stop with the bread and the circus and the endless wars like 1984, and instead stop putting all of our things down the memory hole, that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing by all of this digital content. We've uploaded everything. Most people they don't know what a Dewey Decimal System is. They can't go to a library and find the book. We're putting things in a digital of Alexandria right now that they could put a kill switch and burn this whole fucking thing down at any point. So it's just as important to act how we act right now in our regular lives. And when somebody says something that we don't agree with, we can say, no, blah, blah, blah. And we write our books, we write our words on the wall. We say our truth to our kids. We say our truth to our peers, even if it makes them unfriend us. If we do that, I think we'll get out of here. I think we'll be just fine, because people couldn't do that before. People were conned, and they were fighting in the trenches in World War II against their peers.
And the quality of life was worse as well. But back then, before the old world technology got taken away and went back to horse and cart again, And that's the thing. You're right. Absolutely. It's like it's it's like a metaphor. By turning against your own government, you are also turning against, not turning against, well, turning against, or should I say, doing that shadow work. You're doing that
Mhm.
shadow work inwardly, and then you have to also do that shadow work outwardly, which is with your governments. That is the authority. Who is the
Mhm.
authority? The ego or the
Right. Who
self?
has a
You
right?
know,
Who has authority over you?
yeah, yeah,
Government. Who can govern your mind? Who can restrict your mind?
yeah,
Come on. I mean, yes, you have to overthrow them. It's a micro, macro. Absolutely. Do you need
yeah.
a president? Do you need a, do you need a president? Do you need an army?
Mm.
I don't.
Do we even need a war? Why? Why do we even need a
I
war? What for? You know,
I don't.
there's not enough to go around. This whole false lie about not enough to go around.
Yeah.
We have the technology.
Overpopulation.
Yeah, all rubbish, and we know this. And the
Yep.
more we dispel their lies, like you said, by doing this, yes, it's the Library of Alexandria. Let them burn it down, but I'm gonna do my best is to get as much of this
Yeah, I'm still
information out.
gonna talk my shit. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Keep getting out, keep getting the information out, so that we become the juggernaut. We the one that becomes the, because we are the sleeping elephant, really. And and that's what the illusion of them being the titans, when actually they're very few. They've given us the illusion that they were titans, but we're the ones that are standing on top of Mount Olympus.
Mhm.
Jesus standing on top of the Mount Olive. That's who we are. We've got to be that. There's examples and metaphors and mythologies are there for us to bring about that change. You know, um, Otherwise we're in rinse repeat again, man, aren't we?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll see where we're at in a couple months, man. I mean, hopefully some things shake out and we don't have some new waves, some new scares, and some new threats. But to anybody who watches this, just be prepared. The
Mm.
best thing you could always do is stay true to yourself, be prepared, take your vitamins, work out, get sunlight. I mean, live in reality, speak
Yeah.
your truth, raise your kids. There's really not much else we could say.
Yeah, and do the best we can to stop feeding the machine. I think that's also the real way of voting. The real vote in
Hmm.
in this society is actually voting with your money, not with the ballot paper, because
Yep.
that's all fixed. That's all part of the game. That game is rigged just like the football games are. To a certain degree, it is. I mean, you get the exception of the few throughout, but they're very far and few between in the political realm. But we can't rely on this external savior. We are here, and we have to save ourselves. We have to be our own saviors and collectively save each other from this madness, right? It's otherwise, what other way is there? I don't see any other way. Do you?
No. Yeah. And attention is the new money. Attention's the new currency, really.
Mm,
Data is the new fossil fuel. So even where we're putting our attention in this digital space, that's another way that we need to take our power back by not even giving, like you're saying, unplugging. You have to unplug and stop following these news channels, stop listening to any of their crap, viewing any Washington Post, New York Times articles,
mm,
because that does give them money and give them views. um, you just have to be somehow still get your information so you can still be relevant, still act and be prepared. But definitely do not support any of the mainstream narratives, mainstream people,
oh, it's all scripted.
idols,
Yeah.
celebrities, TV.
Yep.
It's all crap.
Yeah, I mean, even to a certain degree, I started to see all the protests being scripted as well. Some of the protests that come
Yeah.
out, it just looks too scripted to me, and I'm like,
Well,
not all of them. I'm just saying, quite a few of them have,
no, maybe all
eh,
of them are.
maybe all of them. Yeah, maybe
I
all of
mean,
them.
to a point,
Yeah.
to a point, they stage places in there like this trucker stuff. I was worried that they're gonna try to make it like January 6th here. They're gonna try to make it like that in Canada and paint them to be these, uh, you know, really violent extremists or whatever. So we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, people just gotta. You can't be scared. You still got to get out there and protest, get involved, even if it's co-opted to a certain extent. The best
Mm.
thing to do is just point those people out. If you do see somebody who's sketch, don't join in.
Oh
But
yeah, agent provocateurs, so to speak, as well.
right.
Because a lot of
Yeah, I feel
these
like
things
there's
do stand
definitely
out
ones
as,
there.
yeah. I mean, a lot of these things, the thing when you talk about scripted, it's almost like they make it scripted because it does start off as grassroots, as
Hmm.
something that's like, no, I'm against this. I'm against this is immoral. This is not right. This is not, we can see your game, guys. So I'm going to stand there. But there's something as well in actually, giving your attention to authority. Are you still by protesting? Because I don't believe in protesting. I don't believe in that. Oh, I know it doesn't work because that's why it's to
Hmm.
protest. Is not the same thing as to change something. So protesting is just a form of complaint, making a complaint. It won't be taken
Hmm.
seriously. So the only way to for them to take you seriously is to stop paying your taxes. Stop giving power to governments. You want to change government? Stop giving them the power. Stop paying. I say I won't pay taxes until you change these policies. You know, and if it means jail, then so be it. But they can't do that anyway because you're not committing a crime. Again, a crime has got to cause harm. By not paying taxes doesn't mean you're causing a crime. It's actually just another piece of legislation, some man-made law to make you believe
Hmm.
you're committing one when in fact they call it an offense. It's all BS, all of it.
Yep.
If so, it does come back to natural law, natural or universal law, God's law, so to speak, and that is do no harm. Me not paying my taxes is not doing any harm. In fact, you're printing fiat currency, which is not backed by anything, and you're actually making me, who is the real creditor, through my labor and through my sweat of my brow. Okay, that's paying for all the elites' luxuries, by the way. Because they can't exist without us, right?
Yep.
Um, so what am I doing? Doing that? I'm not going to pay my taxes. So I'm going to start there. I'm not going to pay my taxes. Next, I'm not going to give big corporations any of my money. Why should I? I'm going to now support local businesses. I'm going to, and it does take that sort of level of action and sacrifice, for convenience. You have to sacrifice these comforts.
Hmm.
We've had comforts for long enough. It's time to get off our chairs and go, you know what? I want to make things happen. And that means, if that means that I have to be uncomfortable for a bit, and man, that's nothing in comparison to other people suffering in third world countries or
Yep.
war-torn countries. So it's a small
Yeah.
sacrifice in the grand scheme of things.
Yep. And they're going to do it to us anyways. That's the other
Mm,
thing, is that if we don't rise up, if we just slowly rise up over time and we just kind of sit back, they're still coming for you. The
mm,
mandates roll on, the boot goes forward. It really does. Like, I think that's where we've gotten to this point, is because people haven't disengaged. People haven't just not complied. Massive non-compliance in general. If everybody just walked into every store with no mask on from day one, this would have never gotten this far.
mm.
But it, like what you're saying, it's uncomfortable. But we've been nice long enough, and it's not a mean thing to say no, thank you, I'm fine. No, thank you, I don't. I'm good. You have to be comfortable saying no thank you to a stranger in order to say no to your doctor, to a politician, to a policeman, to a lawyer, to whatever.
Yep.
You got to practice in these small amounts too, saying, no, I don't want to wear your mask. No, I don't want to take your shot, even if it means getting fired.
Mm.
You do have to stand and be uncomfortable, be ready.
Yeah, and you have to trust that you will be looked after.
Hmm.
This is the problem. If you live in fear, you're going to manifest more fear in your life. So if you think, oh, but my job and I have no other way, well, find a way. And sometimes you actually have to go through that baptism of fire
Hmm.
to actually come out the other side and see clearly. Actually, no, I can't believe I didn't take up this form of artistry. It's making me so much money now, more than I ever did in my 9 to 5 boring ass job. You know,
Yep.
um, and that's what it takes. That is what it takes. And the more of us that do that, the quicker this thing will be over. And also, in a way, we have a responsibility by being and living that example, by not wearing the masks, by not complying with the narrative, and going, no, I'm making my own narrative. So and that narrative is that I want to see peace on earth, and I want to see all races, all creeds, all nations joined as one humanity, not in a sort of because they sell us this thing, oh, utopia doesn't exist, but dystopia can exist. That's all right.
But dystopia does. Yeah.
Yeah. So dystopia is acceptable, but utopia isn't. And it's like, why not
Have
even
you
at
ever
least aim
seen?
for it? You know?
Yeah. Have you ever seen a movie of a utopia?
Oh,
Sure, that's
dude,
good.
I,
I've never have. I've
I
never seen a
haven't.
movie with a good future.
No.
Includes humans. I mean, you might get like Cars or something that's where there's only animals or cars in the future, but there are no movies of a good future. We
Mm,
and that's how you know that fiction writes reality, really, that this imagination, this unconscious, collective unconscious truly controls perception or even belief in the future. We don't even know what a utopia would look like. We've never even seen one.
I've seen it in a documentary form. Jack Fresco, who died a few years ago, basically made it his life's work to create the Venus Project, and it was all about how we don't need government, that all we need are administrators of society, and that engineers should be the ones helping run the world, and that we declare all the Earth's resources as the people's, as mankind's genuine inheritance, and that we share it equally, and not in a communistic way either, because that's not his model at all. It's more to do with sharing. You know, it's like, hey man, I've got these extra tomatoes growing in my back garden. I've noticed you've got some apples growing on that tree. Do you want to swap over? You know,
Right.
and that's how we get to that world of abundance. You know, of that sort of sharing and removing. Eventually, we won't need the monetary system. You know, then it will just be, oh, we've got our base covered. No one's paying for actually what should be our right, which probably was once upon a time: shelter, food, energy.
Yeah. Look at
You
all
know,
of our technology, and we work more than we've ever worked. We
mm,
pay more than we've ever paid, and we work more than we've ever worked before. So what good is all of this technology, these gadgets? Like we really do. Our
mm,
our fathers, our grandfathers worked way less than we do.
mm,
And to me that's bizarre. That what is all of this comfort when people are like, look at how good we have it. Okay, but we're always working. What's the point? You know? And I read a book one time. There's this guy who wrote these books like the Peter Plan, the Peter Project. I don't know, his name was Peter. But he had a similar theory, man, and it's so simple where he's like, which I've always agreed with this. Why do we have Chinese cancer doctors, Russian cancer doctors, American cancer doctors? We just need cancer doctors. And why do we have Ford, Chevy, all these different people, Tesla trying to make electric cars? His idea was simple where you would get the car companies would just try to perfect a car. That that was they would all work on the same goal. Who could make the best car? That was their incentive, that was their competition. Who can make the best car? And all of them would work together. But say
mm,
this company's like, we made better wheels than you. Okay, now they get some money, they get some capital. But then this person's like, but we got a better engine. But it's all going on the same thing. There's not these copyrights where this Chevy has this, the Ford has this. They're all making the best version of the car.
mm,
As soon as we perfect that, like if everybody jumped on a Tesla and we just started making that Tesla even better, well, then we're like, okay, now cars are good. Now what next? Now let's do airplanes. And then we did it with airplanes. And then we did it with vaccines, like real stuff, not this fake bullshit. It's funny how we have multiple vaccines and nobody knows which one's better than the other. You can
mm,
mix them all free together, inject them all into anywhere in your body, and you're 100% safe. It's all crap.
mm,
So the capitalist plan is total. It can just be bought out. That's to me what people had to have learned by now, that he who has the gold makes the rules. That's the golden rule.
mm,
And capitalism breeds bought out science, bought out pharmaceuticals, bought out medicine, bought out education. lobbyists buying out everything. So we need to get off of that capitalism and go to some type of competitive communism almost, where, like you're saying, we share things, but you still need to compete with industry
for
because it
sure.
isn't our human nature.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the thing where we have to universalize everything, but not in the way that the controllers want it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, well, because
but
they're the ones controlling who
exactly,
gets
that's the
what.
point. We're the ones, as humanity, we all need to be in control of it equally, not in a again, this is the danger of communism, but those who are competent in humanity that can work those things. Yeah.
That's where blockchain and crypto comes in. And I do believe that in its ideology, that blockchain and crypto is like that for finances, that it can be non-localized, that there is
Decentralized.
no,
Yeah.
there is no Fed that's controlling it. If we could do the same thing with shipping, with production, with farming, agriculture, yes, it would be a beautiful world, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and then we can solve all the problems. So rather than this sort of, I guess, and that's the whole thing about, there's good things about capitalism, and there's good things that we can take out of that, which is the competition element, but also it's also produced this sort of poison in our food system and our water supplies and the pharmaceutical industry and so on and so forth. And this goes on. Like, imagine if all people were eating healthy greens, organic, non-GMO, we won't even have disease. We'll eliminate half or 80% of the world's disease in one fell swoop. And that again, it's like you said about the car. Oh, we solved the car. Let's move on to, let's solve the disease problem. Why are people obese?
Solve the diet.
Solve the diet. And it is, we know, let thy food be thy medicine thy food. Hippocrates talked about this. So simple. But yet we're, again, let's change the education systems, because that's the problem. Our children are growing up getting education that serves the elite. It doesn't serve us or themselves at all.
Or them.
Yeah.
And our kids are in school. My kids are in school today. I think luckily they're out of school right now, but they learn. But that's the system we live in. That's the culture that we're in, and we don't have anything better than that right now. So hopefully, that is, like we were talking about earlier, that's the beautiful good news about all this, is that the more mandates and draconian, of course, the draconian measures they put into place will drive more and more people to form systems outside of this system. And that's what we need to do.
That's the key.
We need the nurses that walk away need to have their own clinic with the doctors that walked away. And I know me, I would rather go to those places. I would 100% rather go to the doctors that saw through this psyop,
100%. Yeah. And also, like, you get like Dr. Kaufman, who now is completely left the germ theory thing behind. He's now into terrain theory completely. He knows, like,
I mean, do you give the fish medicine or do you clean the tank? It's super simple.
So simple. Clean the blood.
No,
the environment,
just put medicine in there. Just put medicine in the dirty ass tank. It's crazy.
It is. It really is. But we're getting there. And I think, like you said, that is actually one of those solutions. We have to create our own communities eventually. Otherwise all hell breaks loose. If we don't show to other people who are still asleep that, look, we're living it here. We're living the dream. Right. We're creating money together, and we're using the system against itself. And what better way? And that's where Michael Tsarian talks about, like, all evil contains the seeds of its own destruction. And it's so true. Let's be those seeds of destruction, rather than all love and light and new agey distractions that we're doing right now to ourselves. Let's be those seeds of destruction. We're already in the system. Let's be the virus in the machine.
Yeah, the Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader and bring him on our side. That's what we got to do.
That's right. Yeah. Is there any other themes or things during this time that's kind of stood out for you over the last? I mean, it's been around since I think we spoke last time, it's August or September. So there's a lot has happened. But
the main thing that I would tell all people and parents that me as a firefighter, paramedic, I've been 24 hours every third day. I'm running calls on sick people, whatever. No matter what, variants come out, news comes out, no matter what the media says about hot spots, outbreaks, whatever. Get vaccinated. Don't inject your kids with this shit. Don't freak out. Don't go running scared, asking for prayers if you get diagnosed with Omicron. Right now, everybody should be staying hydrated, taking vitamin C, vitamin D3, zinc, and maybe if you get some ivermectin or something like that, that's great too. But at least take those vitamins, get your sunlight, start exercising. If you're on multiple medications, those are comorbidities. Everybody needs to understand that. If you're on prescription medications, each one of those leads to a diagnosis, which is a comorbidity, whether that's hypertension, diabetes, AFib, whatever these people got. If you're on medications, you're at risk. So start preparing. The flu is dangerous for you people. I run on people who passed out just because they got a regular cold. So right now, everybody needs to just make sure that they start taking accountability for who they are. Now's the perfect time. It's the new year. Every day, get out, walk. If you can walk, then start to run. If you can run, then start to do push-ups and sit-ups. If you can do push-ups and sit-ups, then maybe get into a martial art. Train your mind, train your body. Be the person that will be here till the end. We're going into the end game. Only the strong will survive. I'm telling you. So please, people, do not be a liability for others around you. Do not be a liability for your loved ones. Be a warrior of truth, of peace, of light, and protect your family, your kids, your loved ones. That's the most important thing you can do.
Thank you, Jake. Beautifully said, brother. Beautifully said. And you know, we are now we are coming more and more aware. The collective consciousness is expanding through us, through our own inner healing, individually, in our path as well. And just to add on what you're saying as well, I have my brother Jay Ryan, who's going to come on. He's going to show you and share his knowledge about the importance of alkalinity and Dr. Sebi's work, where he is showing how he's gotten people, he's cured, you know, people of cancer recently, and he's actually helped people get off their meds just through the alkaline herbs alone. And he's showing how powerful that nature provides all cures. So that's something to just add on top of that, to give those who are on medications also hope that there are ways to get out and get off those meds and to solve your, you know, because they're just symptoms of what's already in you, you know, and that could be emotional trauma that's manifesting these diseases as well, and linking to all of those things. But we are living in such exciting times because the whole script is getting flipped upside down on itself, and the truth, the real truth, the universal truths are coming out. And you know, we're living in such amazing times. Thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add, or you
no, man, I'm excited to hear
yeah,
I'm excited to hear this Jay guy coming on, because I do agree with that. And the basis of all medicines, when you go to any type of medical school or learn any type of pharmacology, every prescription medicine that anyone is on is based off of some natural derivative, you know, something found in a plant somewhere. And there are no substances that you add into your body that do anything. They're all antagonists or protagonists, or agonists. They either make your body produce something or absorb something that's already there, that your body already, same thing with like even DMT, your body produces something. Just this drug makes you increase your absorption and consumption of it. So like you're saying, there is always a way. Those medicines, the pharmaceutical medicines that people are on, there's always a natural solution for it. You just have to open your mind. You have to start experimenting and practice medicine like doctors do. Practice medicine on yourself naturally, and use people like this Jay guy, you know, open your mind. Man, Dr. Sebi too, man, rest in peace. He was a hero.
Yeah, he's a hero. He's an absolute legend, and it was actually Jay who actually pointed me in his direction, and
Hmm.
I realized, wow, I've just like completely didn't even know that there's so many hybridized foods that have been genetically modified from a long
Oh, it's
time ago.
terrible.
So this
Yep.
cross-pollination has been happening. People think it's only been in the last 20 years. This has been going on since the early 1900s. You know,
Yep.
I used to see there used to be a strawberry tree. Nobody told me there was a strawberry tree. That actually the strawberries today are not the real strawberries.
No.
You
Yeah, they're in a
know,
little bush now.
yeah, they're in a little bush who needs to come from a tree. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
I
So
know.
yeah, I'll definitely have him on, but I look forward to having you on again, Jay. And I would love to also go into more about um, the power of creativity and the power of creative writing. Because I love
Yes.
your work, you know, on alchemy,
I
on
love yours too.
yeah, yeah. It's
We do a
we're
lot of the same stuff.
yeah, we're mirroring, you know, in different
I
ways,
know.
but in our own authenticity, which is what I love.
Yes. Me
Um,
too, man.
so yeah, I mean, I'd love to just talk a bit more about the creative process with you as well, and the importance of how that actually affects the collective, because I
Hmm.
really feel the power of the artist actually having an effect. You talked about how fiction writes reality. Well, let us be that fiction that writes our reality, the reality we want to see. So I look forward to
Yep.
having you on again, brother.
I want to send you a short story from Jack Parsons. You know, other than his all of his occult thing, he has this short story called Tanis, and it's a
Mm,
fictional place, and nobody knew what he was writing about. But it's my favorite thing he's ever written, and it's about this creative aspect of us and exactly what you're talking about. In this story, people have a hard time understanding what it is because he says, "I am a runner," and then
mm,
there's seekers, and only the runner can hear this thrill, this hum, this heartbeat in the forest, and they're just running to this sound, and
yeah.
nobody else, the seekers, can't hear that. They just follow the runner. And Jack Parsons, whether you want to say even Aleister Crowley, these guys were they were runners of ideas, that runners of creative ideas that the others would chase. It's like when Star Wars came out, and then now people are trying to make ships and stuff, build holographic displays. So we all have to be able to be these runners creatively and go with our wildest creations and put them out into the collective, because even if ours suck, somebody might do better at, they might see us and be like, hey, I could do that better, and do it. And that serves the collective.
Mm. Yeah, then it's no longer about the ego serving the ego. You're actually
Hmm.
serving the collective, which is in a way serving the creator and the
Yeah.
creation and humanity. You know, all in all, it's the most loving act, heroic act one can do as well.
Hmm. Be
So
the muse.
yes, yeah, yeah. Be the muse, be that spark that inspires the flame in others, and
Hmm.
yeah, man, I definitely want to go into more depth into that as well because it fascinates me at the moment. And you know, why do we have creative blocks? What causes those blocks? And
Mm,
the list goes on. The list
that's a
goes
tough
on.
one. Yeah. Yeah. I'm in one right now. No, I haven't written much right now.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I've kind of gone through a very quiet period for a long time, and I had my soul reflections series on my channel, Sagittaria. I've renamed it now to Sagittaria because um
That's beautiful. That's a cool name.
yeah, because I had the aria there, but it just it
Yeah.
didn't gel with the phoenix before, and I thought I'm a Sagittarius, so I want to embrace more of that Sagittarian Jupiterian energy that's in me,
Hmm.
and you know, so yeah, now I'm final with the title now. Sagittaria is my
Yeah.
my creative channel
Yeah.
on YouTube, but
Yeah.
yeah, so those are blocks are getting undone bit by bit, you know, and yeah, I look forward to more of your creations as well, brother. And
Yeah, man. You'll see. We'll
yeah,
figure it out.
I'll include the links below to all our followers here on the channel, to Jake's work, the 100 Monkey. You'll find his links below. And yeah, is there anywhere else they can find your work as well, Jake, other than your YouTube channel?
No, start there. I mean, I'm on
Start there.
Instagram, but just, yeah, start on YouTube.
Okay, well, I'll have to find your Instagram. We'll have to link that in there too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Sounds good,
Awesome,
bro.
brother. Well, amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a
All right,
pleasure.
man. Later, bro.
Much love.